Hello, everyone joining in. Welcome, welcome. We're going to get started in just a minute, but in the meantime, if you want to introduce yourself with your name, your organization, and where you're coming from, that would be great. Awesome. I already see so many people from across the country, Florida, got New York, Virginia, Arizona. Welcome, welcome. Well, I am so excited to get started and talk about recurring giving. So, welcome to How to Boost Recurring Giving in 2026. Welcome. My name is Lisa Galprin. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager here at Mightycause. Before we get to recurring giving and how to improve it in 2026, just a couple of housekeeping things. So I will do my best to keep track of the chat throughout the webinar, but there is a Q&A tool within your Zoom panel. That's the easiest way for me to keep track of any questions that come in. So please feel free to utilize that. I will try to answer questions throughout the webinar, but I'll also save some time at the end for questions. As well, this webinar is being recorded. We will send a follow-up email with a copy of the slide deck and the recording. So, if this is your first webinar with Mightycause, welcome. If this is not your first webinar, welcome back. But those of you who are new to Mightycause, we are a free year-round fundraising platform for organizations across the country. We're also one of the biggest technology providers for giving days across the country, such as Colorado Gives, North Texas Giving Day, Give Minnesota, etc. But as I mentioned, we are a year-round fundraising platform. So we provide all the features you need to fundraise throughout the year. So that means peer-to-peer fundraising, integrations, embeddable forms, donor management. And we'll talk about some of those tools throughout this webinar and how they can help you with your recurring giving. All right, so what are we going to be going over today? We're first going to talk about why recurring giving matters. I'm sure if you're on this webinar, you probably know that it matters. We're going to be talking about messaging and motivation, campaign strategies you can implement, and tools and retention, and how you can improve that for recurring giving. So, why does recurring giving matter? So, in M&R Benchmark's 2025 report, what they found is that in 2024, revenue from monthly gifts increased by 5% from the year prior, while revenue from one-time gifts actually remained flat. And that monthly giving overall accounted for 31% of all online revenue. So that means more than a quarter of online revenue is coming from recurring giving. And what they also found was that the average size of a monthly gift was $24, while the average one gift was $126. So if we look at $24 and we see within a year, that's $288 versus 126. So one-time gifts are great. We always want them, but real growth happens when you invest in recurring giving. So, why are recurring giving donors so awesome? Well, when someone commits to giving to you monthly, what they're saying is they believe in what you're doing long term. They are investing in your organization and your cause, your impact, and your future. They also have a higher lifetime donor value. So, recurring donors are more likely to give to your nonprofit over time. They provide sustainable and predictable revenue for your organization, right? It allows you to not just rely on one-time gifts. It's something that you can rely on throughout the year. And it also keeps you funded through any off-season campaigns that you have. You don't have to just rely on one fundraising campaign that you do during Giving Tuesday or spring fundraising. It's an ongoing support. And as well, you have people that are invested monthly in your mission and your organization. It's a really great stewardship opportunity, which we'll talk a little bit about later. But it gives people the opportunity to be more involved with your organization and potentially get even more involved in the future, such as becoming board of directors, major gift donors, etc. It's just a reliable source of revenue. But what do donors get out of it, right? Like, why would a donor want to invest in something monthly in addition to everything else that they're, I'm sure, investing in monthly? Well, one is impact, right? This gift is going to investment into your mission, and it's not just a transaction. And $120 a month feels very different from 120, $240 a year, right? It's more affordable. Donors can stretch their dollars a little bit more throughout the year. It's more convenient because it can be a set it and forget it. They don't have to remember to give to this nonprofit again. Donors can choose the amounts or dates that they want it to recur on so that it's more convenient and doable for them, and as well as belonging. Monthly donors feel like insiders, like they're part of something bigger. I repeat this probably on every webinar, but I just find this always so relevant. But I had a colleague who said, a previous manager at a nonprofit said that, donors feel like they're making the impact and you're just a way to facilitate that. And that's what being a recurring donor is all about, right? You feel like you're making a monthly impact in your community or in a mission that you feel really passionate about. And as well, there can be rewards or recognition from the charitable organization that can make it a really positive experience. I think the most common mistake that I see sometimes nonprofits make is asking recurring gifts the same way that they would ask one-time gifts. And the ask is a little bit different, right? The psychology is a little bit different. You're not just asking for a donation, you're inviting someone in your community, in your support network, to join your community of ongoing supporters. And you want to think of it in that way. All right, so how can we message and motivate donors to become recurring donors? So, a little piggyback off what I just said about kind of reframing the psychology. Language really matters. You want to shift the language that you're writing from transactional to relational. So, maybe for a one-time ask, you would say donate today. Instead, you want to frame it join our monthly supporters. And instead of saying give $50, it would be give $10 a month. That's a cup of coffee a week. Instead of focusing on give right now, we need your support right now, you're going to be focusing on belonging and the sustained impact of donations. And as well, instead of saying a generic impact, maybe what your organization overall does as a mission, you want to be specific with what are you specifically doing on a monthly basis that these donors can support you on. So that's why I think it's so important to really define the impact that donors make. Make a monthly gift, making a monthly gift drives ongoing support for programs such as your monthly generosity helps fund. And I just provided some examples of how you want to think or frame it. Stocks our shelves with 12 meals every single month, covers vaccinations and basic care for one rescue animal each month, funds a whole month of after school programming for one young person, provides access to primary care for one insured patient each month, including their visits, labs, and medications. These are just some examples, but I think it's really important for you to consider for your nonprofit if someone's making you a monthly gift, what is the impact that they are making for your organization? Because that's the best way that you're going to be able to communicate to your donors. Something else to consider is providing a name to a monthly giving program, maybe that you want to create. People don't just want to give sometimes, they want to feel like they belong. And providing a name can make it feel like more of a communal experience. Because it makes the impact feel real and it also gives donors an identity to step into, right? There's a difference between saying become a monthly donor or saying join our circle of champions and help us serve 100 animals in need. So you maybe want to consider providing a monthly giving name with, and it can be, there can be different levels to each name, but you want something that's in line with your brand, different than your organization's name, something that can appeal to your audience. I've just highlighted a couple of examples here: advocates, allies, ambassadors, builders, champions, club, crew. or Forever Friends. I like that one. Champion Club, Community Hero, Supporter Squad. These are just a couple of examples. Not everyone needs to do this, but it's something I would maybe consider depending on your audience. And what both of these things do is, again, reinforce your impact. These are examples of two different donation forms and how those two different things can look like, right? On the left-hand side, we see when you are specific about the impact that a gift is making. And then if you decide to maybe divide it into different names and levels. I'm going to pause here just for any questions. Are we getting the handout? Yes, this slide deck and the recording will be sent in a follow-up email. What if your donors are on the older side? I don't think this should affect kind of the tenets that we're talking about here in terms of how you communicate with your donors, regardless of their age. Maybe you will change how you communicate it, whether that's email, calling them, etc. But these tenants aren't going to be different depending on their age. Okay, I don't see any other questions, but also if anyone else has any experience or you want to share your input into the chat, feel free to do that. I think it's a great opportunity for everyone to learn with each other. Would blending these two ideas become too busy? Not necessarily. I think I think it's always helpful to define impact because that's the easiest way that not only is someone going to invest in your organization, but maybe even give more than they intended to. And combining it with a name doesn't necessarily make it too messy. It just depends on how you organize it in terms of the donation flow in that form. So you also want to make sure that that giving process is easy and it's seamless and it's not difficult for someone if they are interested in making a monthly donation so that it's not complicated. One thing that you can access for free are Mightycause embeddable forms. You can create as many as you want and you can customize it to however you want. So as I showed you in these examples, you can choose to have whatever description you want in it. And it can accept any multiple payment options such as Apple Pay, Google, Venmo, PayPal. So if you just have a PayPal button on your website, right, this is just such an easy and better way to update and upgrade your donation form because you're giving donors more context for their gifts and more opportunities to give monthly and have it more branded for your organization. I just took a quick screenshot of just me adding it to a website. It's super simple, easy. So if this feels like you're not sure if you can do it, it takes 2 seconds. You can easily create it, and then you just copy the iframe code and paste it on the back end of your website. So again, how does this tie in with recurring giving? On the donation button, or on your donation form, you have the opportunity to choose if you want monthly giving to be a defaulted option. It's automatically set to one time, but if you really want to reinforce monthly giving, or you have a specific recurring giving page that you want a donation form that's dedicated to monthly giving, you can set your donation form to automatically have monthly giving. They can always choose to make it one time if you're concerned about, forcing donors into making a monthly gift. They can always change it to be one time, but this way it automates it for them and it kind of makes it as simple as possible for them to make that monthly gift for your organization. As well, all donations that are processed through Mightycause are processed through our donor advised fund. So we send out the tax receipts and we provide any giving statements to donors, so you don't have to worry about that. Donors, if they want to, they can manage their recurring gifts through the platform as well. So if they want to cancel their donation, if they want to change their amount, update their credit card, they can do that on their own through the platform, or they can also contact our customer service team and we will help, update their information or help them in whatever way they need assistance. So it's also just removing administrative tasks that you don't have to deal with. We also provide a recurring donations report that you can keep track of all of your recurring donors as well as the status of their recurring donations. So, for example, if you have a recurring donor and their credit card is expiring, we will send a notification to you and the donor letting you know that, hey, this donation will cancel if the donor doesn't update their credit card information. And you will be notified. You can see that here in the status area on your recurring report. So it's just an easy and quick way to keep track of how many recurring donations you currently have and who those donors are. And this is just another example of an organization that has our form on their site and they are reinforcing monthly giving. So they have for $10 a month says an ideal monthly recurring donation, thank you. $50 a month, fund a student to attend a wingman workshop. $100 a month, train a student to be a wingman leader. $500 a month, train a wingman trainer for a school district. All right, I'm just gonna pause for a second for questions. How to convert existing or one-time donors to monthly donors. We're just gonna talk about that in 1 second, so we'll talk about that. Um, does a gift for joining monthly donors help? We'll also talk about that a little bit. Um, Is there a fee to use Mightycause? There is no fee to start using it. There is just a transaction fee. Um, okay. All right. All right, so campaign strategies. As I said, we're going to jump into strategies. So, there's a couple of strategies you can implement to drive your recurring giving growth. So, I'll talk about three in particular. We talked a little bit about some of them, but just to dive a little further. So, one is creating a dedicated monthly giving program, which is a little bit what we talked about, but setting a goal that you want 100 new recurring donors, not a dollar amount, and making a program that's about growing your community and not your revenue. Upgrading your campaign. So, targeting one time donors with a segmented ask. You've already shown that you care. Will you take the next step and give monthly? And then campaign add-ons. So every campaign you run, Giving Tuesday, year end, spring appeal, you should feature a recurring option front and centered and something that's not buried at the bottom. So we'll talk a little bit more in detail about these. So recurring giving program basics. So if you're interested in starting a specific recurring giving program, it's not complicated. You could set it up today. So one, I would recommend adding a new section to your website that specifically outlines this program. Donors shouldn't, as I mentioned with our embeddable form, donors shouldn't face obstacles when making a recurring gift. This is a bit of an old stat, but Doubled the Donation found that only 14% of nonprofit organizations prompted donors to make a recurring gift during the donation process, which is so small. So it's such a lost opportunity that you're missing out in capturing donors that want to support your nonprofit long term. Um, so I would recommend adding an option on your homepage as well as a dedicated entire page on your website that's for your recurring giving program that can break down, as we defined before, what is the impact of a recurring gift? Why are you looking for sustained giving? You can utilize this space to communicate all of that and explain how predictable, reliable revenue helps your organization and helps your mission. I would also consider creating maybe a welcome packet, or you can deliver any physical rewards that you want. This is not a requirement, but I have seen nonprofits, again, if they are going with the more name idea, such as, Mighty Champions, they might provide or send like a sticker or a handwritten letter that includes a sticker in it. So that's not necessarily something everyone needs to do, but something that I've seen before that nonprofits have done. You want to make sure that you are creating talking points in regards to your recurring giving program. How are you communicating it, sharing it on social media and your newsletters, as well as creating an email campaign announcing it. I think one of the most important things, and someone mentioned, how do we turn our existing one-time donors into monthly donors, is making sure that you are making a follow-up ask, right? You can personalize your outreach based on the amount that they gave. So you could say, you donated $15 to our last campaign. Can we count on you to give again $50 per month because of our impact that we've defined? You can crunch numbers by saying, for only 29 cents per day, you can support us and all the awesome things that you guys do. You want to make it easy by providing a direct link, and it's super simple. So I just made a quick example. It's not a full email example, but making a targeted ask. So in this type of email, we're going to target all of our donors that gave $240 or less last year, right? So that equals $10 a month. Or I'm sorry, $20 a month. So we can say just for $20 a month, what is the outcome of giving that much? And sending them a direct link to where they can. In this example, if you're choosing to send them to a Mightycause link and not your website, you can actually customize the end of the URL so that that donation amount is immediately automatically set when they go to that link. So I have a couple of examples to share in terms of recurring giving. So this is Partners in Hope. It's a community of monthly donors for Jefferson Center. Their generosity helps fund critical services at Jefferson Center, like family therapy sessions, prescription medication, and suicide prevention. So they have divided their monthly giving and they have provided descriptions saying $15 a year supply of prescription medication for two clients, $25 4 sessions with a school-based counselor, $50 5 therapy sessions for families, $100 suicide prevention training for 300 people. And in addition, they created an infographic where they even went into a little bit even more detail about what a monthly gift can make, the or difference it can make. So I think this is a really great example again of making the impact of a monthly gift super tangible and providing resources to reinforce that. So this is Tubman Organization. This is their Keep Going Giving Circle campaign. A giving circle is a group of donors that come together to pool money for an organization. And that circle may be friends, family members, coworkers. It's bringing people together to support a cause, and they created this campaign. And so they divided their recurring donations into $21 is a 10 ride bus card for homeless youth. So that's 120 rides per year. $74 1 month of personal care products for a woman in shelter. $167 4 weeks of domestic violence support group for 8 survivors. $245 1 month of baby supplies for a new parent staying in shelter. And what I also like about this breakdown is that, you know, it's all within the overall mission of the organization, but they're also different in that, if something speaks to me a little bit more as well, might be more encouraged to do that, right? So if I see 1 month of baby supplies for a new parent, wow, that actually really speaks to me. I really want to support mothers who aren't able to provide baby supplies for their children. I'm going to go ahead and make that commitment to a recurring gift. That's why I think it's so powerful when you are able to communicate that in a succinct way. Um, what do you mean by just transaction fees? How much? Yes. So transaction fees meaning for any type of fundraising platform that you'll find in the out there. There's really two types of fee structures you'll probably see, or three. So one is like subscription fee type, which we don't have. The second is a tip model, and the second is a transaction fee model. So a tip model is at the end, you probably have seen this with like a GoFundMe type of campaign. But donors will be prompted to leave a tip for the platform. The con of a tip model is that typically platforms that have a tip model, they are prompting the donor to leave a higher tip than they would if they were just provided a fee. So usually tip platforms, the amount that donors are going to be asked to cover can be from 15 to 20%. Um, so as opposed to a fee model is that donors can choose to cover a transaction fee or not. And if they don't, we'll just deduct that on your disbursement. So we have a pricing guarantee system so that we guarantee that your aggregate fee on your disbursement is not more than $1.99 and 30 cents per transaction. Sorry, I'm remembering it off the top of my head. But so that's the difference when we talk about transaction fees, and you may see like that tip model from other platforms too. Okay. All right, tools and retention. So this also talks about, right, how can we get some of those one-time donors into monthly donors? So one is creating a welcome journey. A donor welcome journey is the communication and process of onboarding a new donor. What are you sending to new donors once they make their first time gift? Because once you receive a new time donor or a new donor, they are at the peak engagement with your organization. And your welcome journey, your communication that you're sending out when they first become a donor is going to set the tone for their relationship with your organization. Because some nonprofits will just send a receipt and then they'll go quiet. And that's such a huge missed opportunity. You want to use this window when a donor is new. And ideally, which I'll show, there are some things that you can automate so that the process is super easy and simple and it will work on its own every time you get a new donor. So you should be sending out communication at least within the first 2 days that a donor makes a donation. We have a couple tools that you can utilize for your benefit to start this process. Well, first, before I get into our automated emails and our integrations. If a donation is processed through Mightycause, we'll send a tax receipt, as I mentioned. You can add your own thank you language on that receipt. So that's kind of your first line of communication is on that receipt. You can also enable a welcome message. This welcome message is something that will be sent to new donors within 48 hours of their first donation. You can go and enable it and then customize it. So this will be their kind of second outside of the receipt, their first message or their second message from your organization. As well, if you're an organization that utilizes MailChimp, we do have a direct integration with MailChimp. So if that's where you're sending out all of your communication, you can sync your MailChimp with Mightycause so that any donors that come through Mightycause are going into a MailChimp audience that you want, and you can segment easier there. We also have an integration with Zapier. If you're not familiar with Zapier, I definitely recommend checking Zapier out. Zapier is an integrations platform, so they work with over 7,000 different platforms and applications. And what they do is essentially they try to have different platforms work and talk with each other that might not be able to otherwise. So I just provide a couple of examples to give you an idea of how it could work or what you could do. So for example, through Zapier, you could set it up where every time you receive a new Mightycause donation, they get subscribed to a constant contact list. Every time you get a new Mightycause donation, you can create a new Google Sheet row in a Google Sheet that you have. Every time you receive a new donation, it creates a Facebook message that you can post on your Facebook page. You can, connect it with QuickBooks Online. The world is your oyster. I definitely recommend checking it out and seeing. So this is an example of a donor welcome journey. This is, again, just an example, not something that You need to copy or replicate, but to give you an idea of the type of communication that you should be sending out to your donors after they make their first donation. So we're going to send them the thank you email and welcome email. Couple days, we're going to send an impact email, right? What is the impact that donations make to your organization? A get to know us better email. Maybe it's highlighting your executive director, your board, your team, so that your donors can put a face to your organization. A get involved in volunteer opportunities email, how they can further get involved with your organization. Again, kind of forward, encouraging that stewardship. Donor community spotlight email. Maybe you want to spotlight a donor in your community or specific program that your organization is working on. A survey email, a monthly giving ask email, an anniversary email. And again, the goal of it, coming back to that question of how do we turn one-time donors into monthly donors? When you have this welcome journey, when you're communicating all of this, as you see, you're reinforcing the impact of your organization. Who's working at your organization? What are you guys all about? The passion that you guys have. So that by the time that you are making an ask for a monthly gift, all of that has already been communicated. So let's talk a little bit more about stewardship, even after you get a recurring donor, because the goal isn't just to keep a recurring donor once you get them, right? You want to deepen your relationship with them. And also, you don't want them to, cancel halfway through the year. So, because in terms of stewarding, right? Like recurring donors, because they have a monthly investment with your organization, they can also turn into significant players in your nonprofit. They can be major gift donors. They can be potential matching grant donors in the future. And they're just sitting on your recurring donor list right now. So you want to treat them that way. You want to make sure that you are involved and you're proactive in reaching out to them. So, one is making sure that you are sharing your impact. Communicate with your sustaining donors, not less, right? Like you should be transparent about what you're working on, what you're spending on, and reinforcing the importance of your work. Providing annual and quarterly impact reports. So show your cumulative impact. You can list sustaining donors in your newsletters, in your annual report or publication. You could consider for your maybe top major donors printing a list of printing a couple PDF copies of your report and sending those out to them. Maybe if you have an older donor base, as someone asked, you print out some reports for them and mail it out to them if that's a better communication um, process for them. Providing exclusive updates, so sending updates about your organization. So give them early notice about your events, any exclusive pictures, updates. Let them be the first to hear about any new programs or initiatives that you have. Providing personal outreach, and this might not be for everyone, but giving a call, sending a handwritten note for your top recurring donors, expressing gratitude. I volunteered for an all volunteer nonprofit. And so, whenever we had to send thank you notes or whenever we wanted to thank specific donors, we just divided and conquered and we split the list with each of us, and everyone was in charge of writing a handwritten note to the donors that we specifically singled out that we wanted to write notes to. And you also want to consider building a community. So organize events or meetups for recurring donors. You could consider starting a closed Facebook group or LinkedIn group. If you make sure it's well moderated, you can host an annual donor event where donors can meet your nonprofit's leaders. Or you can organize something as simple as just a happy hour or a networking event, a lunch and learn. So there are a lot of things that you can do, but something that I definitely would not dismiss in terms of just because you have a recurring donor, you should also make sure that you are maintaining them and building that relationship. Okay, I'm gonna pause for some questions. Why can't you send the message along with the receipt? So the receipt has the thank you message has a thank you message already in there, but definitely within 2 days, I would recommend sending another message. Sometimes, even when a thank you message is within a receipt, sometimes people will just see it's a receipt and not put together that you're also saying something else, if that makes sense. So that's why, even if you have thank you language in the receipt, I definitely recommend within 2 days of someone making a gift to send out an email that is like a proper welcome thank you email. Can you talk about how to encourage monthly donors to increase their giving amount? We have lots of donors that have been giving at the same level for years. I think that's a really great question. I think some of that has to some of that is related to what we've talked about a little bit, which is reinforcing one, what you've accomplished. I would divide it in this way, right? And think about it this way. What have you accomplished with the gifts that those donors have made? And this is an exercise for yourself first. What have you accomplished with the gift that those donors that gifts the donors have made? What is your goal for your nonprofit? What are you trying to accomplish, right? And I would think about it, if a child was going to ask you that question, how are you going to succinctly say that, right? And then I would figure out, okay, for us to accomplish, let's say we want to, I'm going to say something outlandish, right? We want to build a new school, right? We want to build a new school. With our recurring donors, we were able to provide, after school activities for all of our students. But this time we want to build a school. And if we build a school, we'll be able to enrich children's lives even more. It's not just after school activities, it's we're providing education. I'm just brainstorming here with you. Um, and so how much funding do we need to do that, right? And calculating, right? So if our current recurring donors go from $20 a month to $100 a month, is that going to get you to that goal? So I would just think about it in terms of, again, impact. We talked a lot about impact today, and I think that's the biggest thing that will speak to donors is what you've been able to accomplish with the money that you've received from them and how you can make a larger impact with their giving. I hope that was helpful. But that's how I think of it, and that's how at least for me, just on the other end of being a donor and the nonprofits that I've received communication for, that's what speaks to me the most when they are able to reinforce of what my donation can do for them. We send handwritten notes to our donors during our major donation drives. Yeah, that's great. I know a lot of people actually, like, regardless of age, really love a handwritten note. If you can do that, that's awesome. Um, does it work to have a donor sponsor an individual or activity? Donor sponsor an individual or activity. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Um, okay. We'll continue on and we'll answer more questions also later on. All right. And talking about tools and recurring giving, you also want to make sure that you are utilizing donor management tools that can help you, again, stay on top of stewardship, reaching out to your one-time donors, or noticing which donors would be best to reach out to for a recurring giving campaign. And donor management tools help do that. So we have a tool called our context tool. That sometimes don't organizations on our profit don't realize that they have access to. So I definitely want to make sure that I'm highlight it for you guys because it's a directory of all your nonprofits on all of your donors on the platform. And you can keep tabs on your donors through our contacts tool. You can add tasks, you can add a relationship tracker, any calls or meetings, and you can also create custom segments. So if you want to create a segment for your top recurring donors, you can do that on here. And then you can also send a large group message to all of those recurring donors or to a couple of specific donors, whatever you want. Um, so I definitely recommend utilizing this if you aren't yet. And just, I think it's something that you can utilize to your advantage in terms of figuring out who you want to reach out to and who you want to target. All right, so we're actually coming to the end of the webinar. So I wanted to kind of break down a couple of action items that you can do that you can hopefully even do this week or next week, since we're at the end of the week, that I think is possible. So one is setting your donation form to be defaulted to monthly giving, or creating a new dedicated donation form where monthly giving is the default option. Add impact-driven descriptions or labels to your giving tiers. Set up or update your automated welcome message. Build a custom segment for your top recurring donors. Identify your top 10 one-time donors and draft a personalized upgrade ask. And then write a dedicated recurring giving email ask. So I think these are some quick wins that you can do that I think are you can start off in terms of trying to improve your recurring giving. We also have a brand new guide, how to grow your recurring giving. So if this kind of checklist format is better for you, so you can keep track and you want some more information, we have a guide that will be included in the follow-up email. So you can download it and access it whenever you want. All right, so we have more resources as well before we jump into more questions. So we have our tech support, our webinars, ebooks, blog. As I mentioned, I will send this webinar as a follow-up email with the slide deck and the recording. Feel free to register for our next webinar, which is, I know this is kind of crazy, but spring fundraising. We're going to be talking about spring fundraising. I know it's coming up. So we'll be talking about spring fundraising in March. So feel free to register for that. And then as well, once this webinar is finished, there will be a survey that pops up. If you're interested in learning more about Mightycause, you can complete that survey. And as well, if you have any other feedback about any topics you want covered for future webinars, let us know. All right, so let me jump into questions. Mm. We talk to our donors about the fact that they can sponsor a child's experience for a month. Yeah. And I think framing it is always the best way of encouraging it. Um, we are in Africa and have rescued animals and newly trained or training staff so we can get donors to sponsor an individual, like sponsor an animal. Is that what you're referring to? Um, what do you do if you've never received a donation? Yeah, so I think for any new nonprofit that asks about like, well, where do I start? Um, if you've been on a webinar before with me, I've shared this story before, but I think it's impactful. I think the best place to start is your network of family, friends, and your community. And it's not just asking them for a donation. Really, the most impactful thing is for them to share your organization and your mission to their network. Um, I've shared this story before, but my sister had kind of a friend from graduate school who, after graduate school, started a nonprofit organization. And she sent an email to her community and asked, hey, I've started this organization. This is what I'm trying to accomplish. What I'm asking you from you is, yeah, a donation would be great, but if you could pass this along, if you could share this, that would be great. And my sister sent it over to me. She said, hey, this is my friend from college or from graduate school. this is what she's doing. She's a really great person, and this is a really cool mission. She was building a school in Africa. Um, you know, if you can support, that would be great and awesome for her. And I made a donation. And I think when you're brand new, that's going to be the best way to start is relying on your community of people if possible and asking them just to share it to their network. Ask them to share it to your coworkers. And I think that's why what I talked about in the beginning, I think is so important, which is defining your impact and defining your mission, especially when you're asking people to advocate for your organization or also asking them to communicate on behalf of your organization. You want to make sure it is super concise, it is super easy. A child could explain it, a child could understand what you're saying. Um, and it's very easy for someone to understand, again, what an impact a donation will make. So I think that's a great place to start. If you are constrained, also you maybe don't have a large community, which is that's some people, they don't have a large community that they can rely on. I would also encourage to kind of look into what other communities are out there that are similar to your mission or that will care for your mission, right? If you're an animal organization, are there Facebook pages related to the specific animals that you're rescuing that you can engage with and that you can share your organization and share how you're supporting those animals? And maybe those people who are directly involved within that community are they're going to be more interested in supporting your organization. Um, okay. Say, okay, for giving circles, say for example, I have two programs, housing and feeding programs. Are you saying create two giving circles, one for housing, one for feeding? Are you saying people might be more attracted into giving in this circle because it resonates with them specifically? I would say it depends on, that's a little bit internal. I would say if possible to combine it if you're dealing with like a small network of people that you can reach out to. Um, I think, why differentiate like monthly giving for your organization unless your programs are so separated and they kind of need to be separated. But I would combine them so that it's super simple and not complicated. Um, MailChimp or Zapier. They're just two different things. So MailChimp can work with Zapier. Zapier is just the platform that helps integrate different things together. So it's going to help connect Mightycause or MailChimp. So they're two different things. Can you provide a sample donor stewardship communication annual plan, month by month topics, content, action? Um, I think it's a blog post that we have. It goes into that more so. I'll have to take a look and I can send you if there's anything we have that is in more detail. Um, is Zapier free? They have plans. Their basic plan is free. So that's why I talk about it because if you just want to like try it out, you want to test it out, you can do so and it's completely free. And even if you go to their website, they have their interface is really cool and how you can see how different platforms can work with each other. Like internally at Mightycause, we use it. I've used it before. It's really easy and you can actually do a lot with it. And I feel like it's really underutilized sometimes. Um, how can I start fundraising? I mean, yeah, as I mentioned previously, I would just start and like send out to your network of people, right? Just writing an email saying, hey, this is what I'm fundraising. If you can support me, if you could share this with your friends and family and coworkers, and sharing again, like what are you trying to accomplish and the impact it can make. Are there any other questions? Okay. I don't see any more coming in. I hope this was helpful. If you, as I mentioned, if you have any other topics that you want us to cover on a future webinar, please let us know. It's helpful for me to know. As well, lastly, I always forget to plug this, but please, if for any of your fundraising campaigns, if you want to at Mighty Cause, I love to see just personally what everyone is working on, and we'll repost it and share it and follow back with your organizations. But I love just to see what you guys are working on. It's sometimes I will use you guys as examples if I see a really good one. Um, so thank you so much, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.